Environment versus development. It's a familiar issue to Lake Macquarie Council. The proposed Caves Beach resort, situated in a politically sensitive coastal corridor, has generated heated environmental opposition. But victory last night for developer Gordon Pacific, with council approving an 18-hole golf course in this prime oceanside location. From Caves Beach to Green Point, and another thorny issue for council. A long-awaited consultant's report has now been made public. Its preferred option, to dedicate the entire estate as a bushland park. Second choice would be for an 85% bushland park, with the remaining land developed along sympathetic residential and tourism lines. But Mayor Alderman Ivan Welsh has little good to say about the $21,000 report, dismissing its findings as predictable. Alderman Welsh stands by his preference for limited development at Green Point. With all doors closed for state government funding, Alderman Welsh is now pinning his hopes on an interest-free government loan. Meantime, another clash in the environment development debate, this one over beer. The Newcastle Brewing Company has come out on top after Bond Brewing tried to stop the development of a $14 million high-tech brewery at Cardiff. Bond Brewing opposed the local initiative on environmental grounds, predicting the plant's wastewater would pollute Lake Macquarie. But Bond's protest fell flat. Taking in advice from the State Pollution Control Commission and the Hunter Water Board, Council approved the brewery last night, subject to environmental controls. Work will commence early next month. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
Top Glory coach Alec McMahon will now be employed full-time as coach. Over the past 2 seasons, McMahon has had to balance the pressures of coaching a competitive Winfield Cup side and managing ProScore, an advertising branch of the Knights. The Knights board gave the nod for Alan to slot into the coaching position full-time, allowing him to concentrate on getting Newcastle into a premiership-winning position. Alan tonight is resting after knee surgery and will take up his new appointment early next year.
The overflowing public gallery at tonight's meeting was proof that the proposed marina and motel development for Colette has become a hot issue. It was the largest public gallery Port Stephens Council has ever seen, with the majority of people representing the Colette Concerned Citizens group. Supporting the resident group were Councillor Bustede and Councillor Bartlett, who recommended the development application be rejected. However, that motion was defeated. In the other corner was Councillor Meyer, who stressed to the meeting the employment opportunities the development would create for the region. He moved Council support the application, subject to height approval and certain conditions to be determined at a later date by the Development Assessment Panel and the Council. That motion was accepted 7 votes to 5. But while Council has shown its support for the development, a rescission motion handed to Council virtually puts the decision back to square one. The matter is to be discussed at the next Council meeting. Although in essence no decision was made tonight, developer Ian McAndrew is confident he now has Council support.
Basically, I have to be very pleased that Council's given an indication of their support to the Peppers Anchorage development. Whilst I would very much have liked a development consent, I understand that Council will wish to place a range of conditions upon the development.
However, the Colette Concerned Citizens group has vowed to continue their opposition. Brian, what's your reaction to tonight's decision?
Extreme disappointment. We half expected this pro-development council to have a decision along the lines they have. The Colette Concerned Citizens are still adamant that they do not want a hotel on that site because they do not have a site. They've got to create a site with rock, rubble and sand dredging.
In Emergency units turned out within minutes of the reported ceiling cave-in at the Franklin supermarket, but soon after they were able to confirm to the relieved shopping complex owners that there were no casualties.
Oh, well, I assume that the shopping centre was open and that there were customers in here, but no one's been hurt.
Witnesses say water began pouring through the ceiling before it gave way with a tremendous crack, bringing down dozens of panels and fluorescent lights.
There was about 80 customers scattered throughout the shop. There was a lot of them down here, but my assistant manager happened to be here at the time, and when the water started to come through, she got the downpour on her and moved the customers away immediately, and that's when the collapse happened.
After initial panic, customers made their way out of the store, leaving their shopping behind. Damage to stock appeared minimal and firefighters mopped up most of the downpour. The store is part of a shopping complex which has recently changed hands. Long-term staff say the ceiling developed a serious leak at about the same time last year, which was supposedly repaired. An inspection today revealed the same problem: too much roof area and not enough allowance for runoff. The collapse came during a torrential cloudburst over Maitland, during which almost 20 millimetres of rain fell in less than an hour. Operators say they hope to have the supermarket reopened for business tomorrow. School teachers aren't alone in dissatisfaction with pay offers. HSC markers met this afternoon to reject their salary package and to plan further action, possibly delays to HSC marking. New South Wales teachers will hold a 24-hour strike tomorrow over their pay offer, and locally at least, there's no sign of an early settlement.
Clearly the offer will be rejected by teachers. It's an outrageous offer. It's an insult to their professionalism, their dedication and indeed to their intelligence. And I'm quite sure tomorrow they will vote in massive numbers for continuing industrial action until this government puts up a package about which we can hold sensible negotiations.
Meanwhile, there's more trouble brewing over a third issue: the refusal by Year 12 teachers to work extra periods to cover for absent colleagues in lower grades. That issue will have to be dealt with when teachers return to work, but the outlook isn't encouraging.
Sean Dennis is the only player from the Falcons lineup in '89 that's not making the arduous tour. With 2 games in Hawaii and a further 12 games on the mainland of the USA, it's no sightseeing picnic, but a tour with a specific purpose: to look at a couple of players in the States and continue to build team strength. For Neil Turner, it's a chance to pick up some hints from the home of basketball.
I'm only just seeing natural athleticism of the American players and how strong they are inside, and their quickness in being able to guard some of these top players.
However, on arrival, they are bound to run into some pretty tough opposition.
Well, they can expect to really fight a bunch of guys over in the States because they'll just be starting their season off and they really want to impress their coach. They'll be playing for really positions, so they'll be in shape, they'll be fit, so they'll be hungry to really test, see what they can do against us, so we'll have a really hard task up against them. So hopefully, but it'll be a good experience for us to play against that type of pressure.
Meanwhile, the Newcastle Knights' new Queensland signing has arrived in Newcastle, ready to take up the challenge of the Winfield Cup. 19-year-old Adrian Brunker hails from the remote North Queensland town of Collinsville and brings to the Knights' den a tag of being the new Gene Miles. This year he represented his state in a match against Papua New Guinea, in which he scored 2 tries and kicked plenty of goals. Brunker played for the Queensland under-21s and under-19s against New South Wales and scored a try in each match. He was also named Queensland's Rookie of the Year, the first time a country player has won the award. For all of those honours for his state, why the Knights and not the Broncos?
A lot of first graders up there, a lot of good players up there. I like it down here. It looks a bit like Collinsville down here, but bigger in size.
And when it came down to finally choosing a club to go to, it wasn't a hard decision to make.
Didn't want to go down in Sydney, I just wanted to stay in Newcastle or either Broncos or Gold Coast Giants.
Top Queensland driver Paul Lindbergh will make a special trip to Newcastle to take part in the series, but he's bound to strike tough opposition from two-time Australian sprint car champion George Tatnall. These two drivers will have to contend with the Sydney Brat Pack, which includes the sensational 19-year-old Brooke Tatnall, along with brothers Colin and Robert Farr. Former New South Wales champions Dennis Farr, Bob Tunks and Brad Hayward, and the former Victorian champion Max Dumsney will use their experience to keep the youngsters at bay. It will be the sprint car's first drive on the widened track, and fast times are expected. The one-lap record of 13.354 seconds could go, along with a host of other records.
Mr Connell was chosen from 17 applicants from around Australia. The 41-year-old was acting port manager since October last year. He joined the MSB in 1985 after working as general manager of the Hunter Development Board for 4 years. He's still a director of the Institute of Industrial Economics at the Newcastle University. Local Maritime Services Board Chairman Bruce Thompson said Mr Connell had been instrumental in introducing commercial management practices, computerisation and a marketing program to the Newcastle office. His appointment is the latest stage in an administrative restructure of the MSB, which will increase the autonomy of the state's ports and recreational waterways. Mr Connell takes over from Captain Ramage, who was port manager for 6 years prior to the MSB restructuring.
The Broadmeadow-based helicopter is undergoing regular maintenance, so the Prince Henry Hospital crew was called in to help. They first had to land on the lurching deck of the anchored wheat carrier Iran Nesragi, only just fitting between the superstructure and a gantry crane. It took half an hour or so for the doctor to ready his patient for transfer, during which time an ambulance prepared itself just across the water at Fletcher Park. The centre of their attention was the 25-year-old wife of the electrical engineer aboard the vessel, Elahi Zagrebashi. Married just 4 months, she apparently suffered an early miscarriage. Hospital authorities said later Mrs. Zagrebashi was admitted and is in a satisfactory condition. While all concerned made the rescue operation look simple, it wasn't.
It was good pilot judgment because we had to land side on into the wind, but it was done with extreme safety and the patient was able to be extricated from the vessel.
The helicopter returned to the Iran Nesragi to ferry Mr. Zagrebashi ashore to be with his wife. He could join her only after he reported to customs officers for clearance. He explained to me that it's not unusual for wives and even children to travel aboard ship. His vessel has 2 women and 3 children, but unfortunately no medical service.
"3,000 people filled the grounds of St Joseph's Convent for the funeral of 17-year-old Janine Ormashire, a 19-year-old brother Gavin and his 17-year-old girlfriend Vicky Lee McGrath. They were among the 5 Central Coast people killed in the tragic bus accident near Grafton on October 20. 6 buses conveyed friends from local schools. Also, there were people the 3 had met through their jobs or many of the sporting teams in which they had competed. A large contingent of business people from across the Central Coast also came to offer their condolences and support to Colin Ormashire, the father of the 2 dead teenagers and advertising manager for Central Coast Publications. His wife Angela, released from hospital only for the funeral, arrived by ambulance and was flanked throughout the service by ambulance officers. The funerals coincided with the state government announcement of a full inquiry into the accident that claimed 20 lives. The special inquiry, chaired by the state coroner, will begin hearing evidence in late January. Funeral arrangements for the other Central Coast victims have yet to be finalised.
Seeing Bob Treloar climb out of the cockpit of a Hornet is nothing new around RAF Base Williamtown, but today his arrival on the tarmac heralded something special, the completion of 5,000 hours in the air, a rare feat in fighter pilot circles and one Bob himself thought at times he'd never make.
What about when you were flying in Vietnam? You were involved in combat there. Did you ever think you'd be making 5,000 hours at that stage?
No. On a few occasions I was lucky to make the next hour, I thought. I never thought I'd be flying fighters. Vietnam was a tremendous challenge. It was the first time where a person can go straight from a pilot's course to an aeroplane and do something operational. That has been in some ways a highlight of my flying career.
And of course the boys of the No. 3 Squadron, the unit that has been under Bob's command for the last 2 years, couldn't let the opportunity pass without a bit of horseplay. No handshake waiting for Bob on his alightment, instead the traditional ritual of a bucketing down, always reserved for RAF career milestones, and then a rather unceremonious journey around the squadron tarmac. But dignity was restored when the champagne was brought out. Bob's time in the air has been action-packed to say the least. Since 1967 he's sat behind the controls of Windshields, Vampires, Mackeys, Sabres, Mirages and even Hornets as well. He flew the Iroquois helicopter in Vietnam for almost a year, accumulating almost 800 hours in combat. But according to Bob, today holds special significance in that it may be one of his last great achievements.